Hello and welcome to the Biological Anthropology lecture series. I'm Dr. Richard Jonathan O. Tadurin. Here we explore what it means to be human, biologically, evolutionarily, and behaviorally. Let's begin our journey into the science of humanity. Welcome to Module 1, Introduction to Biological Anthropology. In this module, we explore the foundations of the discipline, its subfields, methods, and the biocultural approach to understanding humanity. In this section, we explore how science works, emphasizing the scientific method and its role in studying human origins and variation. To understand how anthropologists build knowledge about human origins, we must first understand the scientific method, the foundation of all scientific inquiry, including biological anthropology. The scientific method is not simply a checklist of steps, it is a way of thinking. It is a disciplined approach to asking questions, gathering evidence, and testing explanations about the natural world. What makes anthropology a science is not the subject it studies, but how it studies it. At its core, the scientific method begins with observation. Scientists notice patterns, anomalies, or gaps in what is known. In anthropology, this might involve observing variation in human anatomy, discovering a fossil fragment, or noting similarities in primate behavior. These observations spark questions. Why do humans walk on two legs? When did tool use first appear? How do different environments shape human variation? From observation, scientists develop a hypothesis, a testable explanation for the pattern or phenomenon. A hypothesis is not a guess. It is an informed statement grounded in existing knowledge. For example, an anthropologist might hypothesize that bipedalism evolved because it conserved energy during long-distance travel. The key is testability. A scientific hypothesis must be framed in a way that evidence could show it to be wrong. Testing a hypothesis requires data, measurable, observable evidence. Biological anthropologists collect data from fossils, living primates, genetics, human skeletons, cultural practices, and ecological conditions. They use methods such as radiometric dating, comparative anatomy, DNA sequencing, stable isotope analysis, and field observation. The strength of the method lies in replication. Multiple researchers should be able to gather similar data and evaluate the hypothesis independently. As data accumulate, scientists evaluate whether the hypothesis is supported or contradicted. If the evidence consistently supports it, the hypothesis may become part of a broader explanation known as a theory. In everyday language, theory often means speculation. In science, a theory is a comprehensive, well-supported explanation for a wide range of phenomena. Theories are not guesses. They are the strongest forms of scientific understanding we have. Evolutionary theory, for instance, explains how species change over time through mechanisms such as natural selection, mutation, gene flow, and genetic drift. It is supported by evidence from genetics, paleontology, ecology, and comparative anatomy. Another important distinction is between theories and laws. A scientific law describes patterns that consistently occur under specific conditions, such as the law of gravity. A theory explains why those patterns occur. Evolution is a theory because it explains patterns in biodiversity, fossil sequences, and genetic change. Theories do not become laws, and laws do not become theories. They serve different roles in science. The scientific method is also self-correcting. New discoveries can challenge old assumptions. For example, early anthropologists once believed that large brains evolved before bipedalism. Fossils later proved the opposite. Bipedalism appeared millions of years earlier. Similarly, genetic research overturned older ideas of discrete biological races, revealing that human variation is continuous and shaped by adaptation, not by fixed categories. Science advances because it is willing to revise itself when new evidence emerges. Importantly, the scientific method relies on critical thinking. Scientists must evaluate evidence, consider alternative explanations, and recognize biases. In anthropology, this is especially crucial because human origins have long been influenced by cultural assumptions, colonial perspectives, and racial ideologies. The scientific method provides a framework for separating evidence from ideology, allowing anthropologists to build knowledge that is empirical, testable, and ethically responsible. Science in anthropology is not limited to labs. It unfolds in deserts, caves, rainforests, archives, and excavation sites. Whether dating volcanic ash in East Africa, comparing skeletal traits in a forensic case, or analyzing primate behavior in the wild, anthropologists follow the same basic logic of scientific inquiry. The method allows researchers to connect individual discoveries, like a single tooth or bone fragment, to broader questions about human evolution. Ultimately, the scientific method empowers anthropology to answer profound questions with clarity and rigor. It transforms curiosity into knowledge and ensures that our explanations for human origins are grounded in evidence, not assumption. When we talk about evolution in anthropology, the conversation inevitably leads back to Charles Darwin. Although Darwin is best known for explaining how species change through natural selection, he also proposed one of the earliest scientific hypotheses about human evolution. His ideas were bold for the 19th century, and although not all of them were correct, they provided a framework that later evidence would refine. In his 1871 book, The Descent of Man, Darwin suggested that humans shared a common ancestor with African apes. This was a revolutionary claim at a time when most scientists believed humans were entirely separate from the natural world. Darwin observed anatomical similarities among humans, chimpanzees, and gorillas, particularly in skeletal structure and limb proportions, and reasoned that our origins must lie in Africa. This idea would not be confirmed until the 20th century, but Darwin's insight was remarkably prescient. Darwin also hypothesized that bipedalism, walking on two legs, was central to human evolution. He believed that freeing the hands for tool use was the driving force behind upright walking. This hypothesis seemed plausible at the time, especially as humans are the only primate species that habitually walk upright and rely heavily on tools. However, fossil evidence discovered over the next century forced scientists to revise this view. Early hominins, such as Ardipithecus ramidus and Australopithecus afarensis, show clear adaptations for bipedalism millions of years before the earliest known stone tools. This means that bipedalism evolved first, and tool use emerged later. Darwin was partially right. Bipedalism was crucial, but his explanation for why it evolved was incomplete. Darwin also speculated on the evolution of the human brain. He believed that intelligence, problem-solving, and social behavior exerted selective pressures that led to brain expansion. This idea was broadly correct. The genus Homo shows a marked increase in brain size compared to earlier hominins. But again, the timeline did not align perfectly with Darwin's assumptions. Fossils show that significant brain expansion occurred after bipedalism, not before it. Another influential aspect of Darwin's work was his attention to variation. He argued that differences among human populations were shaped by natural selection, sexual selection, and environmental pressures. While some 19th century scholars misused such ideas to support racial hierarchies, modern genetics has shown that human variation is gradual and does not form discrete biological races. Still, Darwin's emphasis on variation set the foundation for understanding adaptation. What makes Darwin's hypothesis so important is not its accuracy in every detail, but its scientific approach. He offered explanations grounded in observable evidence and presented them in ways that could be tested and potentially disproven by future research. As new fossils were unearthed and genetic tools developed, scientists could refine, revise, or replace parts of his hypothesis based on data. This illustrates the essence of science. Knowledge grows stronger through correction, not certainty. Darwin's early ideas remind us that science is a process, not a finished product. His hypotheses sparked questions that shaped an entire field, and the ongoing discovery of fossils continues to rewrite details of human evolution. Understanding the scientific method is not just an academic exercise, it is the foundation for how we build reliable knowledge about human origins, human variation, and human behavior. In biological anthropology, this matters profoundly because the subject of our study is us. Every claim about human evolution, race, health, or behavior carries social, political, and ethical weight. To study humanity responsibly, we need a framework that separates evidence from assumption, data from ideology, and explanation from speculation. The scientific method gives us that framework. First, the scientific method matters because it protects us from bias. Humans are storytelling animals. We naturally search for patterns, explanations, and meaning. But those explanations can easily be influenced by culture, religion, nationalism, or personal experience. Anthropology has a difficult history. Earlier scholars once used superficial traits like skull shape or skin color to justify racial hierarchies. They believed their ideas were scientific, but they relied on biased assumptions, not rigorous testing. Today, the scientific method ensures that conclusions about human differences or similarities are grounded in measurable, repeatable evidence, not prejudice. Second, the scientific method matters because it enables self-correction, something essential in a field where new discoveries constantly reshape our understanding. The story of human evolution is a perfect example. For decades, scientists believed that a large brain evolved first because modern humans are markedly intelligent. But fossil discoveries proved that bipedalism came early and brain expansion came much later. If anthropology did not embrace self-correction, we would still be relying on outdated, inaccurate ideas. Instead, each new fossil, each new genetic sequence, and each new excavation site allows us to revise our understanding. This is what makes anthropology a living, dynamic science. Third, the scientific method matters because it teaches critical thinking. Scientific literacy is not just for scientists, it is crucial for navigating modern life. Public debates about vaccines, climate change, AI, forensic evidence, or genetically modified foods often hinge on whether people understand how scientific conclusions are reached. Anthropology adds another layer. It helps people evaluate claims about human behavior, race, evolution, and cultural difference. Without critical thinking, pseudoscience and misinformation can quickly fill the gap, something we see in conspiracy theories, online myths, and race science revivalism. Scientific reasoning gives students the tools to assess evidence and reject unsupported claims. Fourth, the scientific method is essential because anthropology often deals with incomplete evidence. Fossils are fragmentary. Archaeological sites are patchy. Human behavior is variable. Without a method that emphasizes testability, replication, and cautious inference, it would be easy to jump to dramatic but unsupported conclusions. The scientific method keeps us honest. Hypotheses must match the evidence, not the other way around. Finally, this matters because understanding human evolution enriches our understanding of who we are today. Evidence-based anthropology helps explain why humans cooperate, why we form families, why our bodies have certain vulnerabilities, and why we vary across populations. It clarifies which differences are biological and which are cultural. It shows that most human traits, skin color, body shape, disease resistance, are adaptations to different environments, not markers of superiority or inferiority. In this way, the scientific method is not only a tool for research, it is a tool for building a more accurate, humane understanding of our species. As we close this section, remember this. Science in anthropology is not about memorizing facts. It is about learning how to think. The scientific method empowers us to question carefully, test rigorously, and understand deeply. It protects us from error, bias, and misinformation. And most importantly, it allows us to tell the story of humanity with clarity, humility, and evidence. As we conclude this section, it becomes clear that the scientific method is more than a set of steps. It is the logic that allows anthropology to build trustworthy knowledge about human origins and variation. Biological anthropology deals with questions that span millions of years and rely on fragmentary evidence, from fossil bones to genetic sequences. Without a rigorous method for forming hypotheses, testing ideas, and revising theories, we would have no reliable way to interpret this evidence or understand our place in nature. Through Darwin's early hypotheses, we saw how scientific ideas evolve. Darwin did not get every detail right, but he gave science a testable framework for understanding human evolution. As new fossils were discovered and new analytical tools developed, anthropologists refined, sometimes rejected, parts of his model. This process of correction is what strengthens scientific knowledge. It reflects the humility built into science. Explanations must adapt to evidence, not the other way around. Understanding the scientific method also equips us to distinguish evidence-based anthropology from cultural assumptions, pseudoscience, or outdated ideology. This matters deeply because claims about human origins, race, or behavior can have profound social consequences. A scientific approach ensures that interpretations of human variation remain grounded in data and free from bias. Module 1 has taken us through the essential foundations for understanding the biological study of humanity. We began by defining anthropology as a holistic discipline, one that views humans through interconnected lenses of culture, language, archaeology, and biology. This framework allowed us to appreciate the biocultural perspective, the idea that human biology cannot be separated from culture, environment, or behavior. Every part of who we are, from our diets to our bodies to our health, is shaped by this continuous interaction. We then shifted our focus to biological anthropology itself, examining how humans evolved and how we continue to vary as a species. Through the 6 big events of human evolution, we saw the gradual accumulation of traits that make us uniquely human: walking upright, changing how we eat, making tools, communicating through speech, cooperating in hunts, and reshaping our environment through domestication. These milestones illustrate that human evolution is dynamic, not static, driven by both biological adaptation and cultural innovation. The interdisciplinary nature of biological anthropology further showed us that understanding humanity requires geology, genetics, anatomy, chemistry, ecology, and cultural insight working together. Finally, we grounded all of this in the scientific method, the backbone of how anthropologists test hypotheses, interpret evidence, and revise theories. By understanding how science works and how it self-corrects, we gain the tools to evaluate claims about human origins and variation with clarity and responsibility. The first has laid the conceptual groundwork. In the next modules, we apply this foundation to the fossil record, primate behavior, human variation, and the biological clues that illuminate our evolutionary story. Thank you for joining this lecture. I'm Dr. Richard Jonathan O. Tadurin. I hope this session deepened your understanding of biological anthropology. Keep exploring what it means to be human. See you soon.